Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's Season Love, SCN, that's who I be. And welcome to another Season Lifestyle episode. Yay! I used to post Season Lifestyle episodes every Wednesday. So I used to say, welcome to another Wednesday with me. This is probably not going to go up or maybe it will go up on a Wednesday. But regardless of whenever you click on this, welcome back. Bonus to you. I locked my hair back in 2021. No, 2022, the top 2022. And I started noticing buildup in my locks, like by the end of 2023. Like, I feel like towards the ending of 2023, I started noticing just like stuff in between them that I couldn't necessarily take out. Like, anybody that has locks know what I'm talking about, like the lint that builds up in there. But at that time, I didn't really see it for real until like the ending of 2024. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is not it. This is not what I expected, because I definitely didn't anticipate, I guess, all the baggage that came with having locks, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to, call it just baggage, because I'm sure it's not baggage for everybody else. However, I wasn't necessarily okay with like just something being stuck in my hair that I can't take out. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It feels so ridiculous to me. It sounds so crazy. And around when I started noticing the lint that was stuck in the locks that I couldn't take out, I was also noticing, or a routine, repetitious thing that came to light for me was how the plants that I had there when I was living in like an old apartment back in the Bronx, like the new plants that I would buy, and I would water every day, I would take care of, they all just kept fucking dying. Like, literally, they'd lose leaves. They just wither, get smaller. Like, y'all remember Terry? I was so excited about Terry. If you know about Terry, shout out to you, because you were OG for real, for real. Like, Terry is like my first plant that I got in 2022, actually, around not when I first started my locks, but like towards the ending of that year, I picked up Terry. I think I bought him for like $15 or some shit like that. He was so tiny. And I got to watch him grow really long. And I changed his pot, put him to a bigger pot and everything. We got to that stage and such. But yeah, even with his leaves, I saw just withering away day by day. Like, and with a succulent, you don't gotta water him too much, of course. But he was getting the adequate, or he was getting, to my perception, right, the sunlight that he needed. I feel like when something is not working, the natural instinct for some would be to like leave that thing alone and do something else. And to an extent, I feel like I exercised that, but I also acknowledge the aspect of myself that is used to just being complacent in a lot of things. And I feel like my hair was one of those things, and also like I feel like me staying in New York was one of those things too. And there was a sort of distance that I felt from like what I was doing versus how I actually wanted to feel. Like, I didn't understand fully that I could, or I was allowed to feel how I would prefer to feel. Like, a lot of the times during those like just being those past versions of myself, I can just going back to those versions of myself, I can attest to not really being aware of the choices that I had as a person, or just as a sovereign being, because of like certain complacent like perceptions I had of myself in this realm and the people in it as well. And with my hair, I just wanted to not have to worry about it. And that's why I locked it, truthfully. So I don't really have to, so I can just be free of, like, having to do my hair consistently. And me cutting my locks is not a sentiment to saying, locks is too much. It's too high maintenance. Like, no, if I wanted to keep the locks going, I obviously could have. However, I also felt like I was carrying around like the weight of the past versions of myself, like the hair that was locked and that like gave me all of that length was hair from my childhood that I've been growing since I was like a baby. And that stood out to me so much because it was like, wow, like I just took all those years of like growth, heat damage, and all that trauma and just locked it up. Locked it all up into these big, beautiful, chunky locks. My locks were so beautiful. I loved my locks. I felt like a new version for myself, and that instance was very alchemizing for me, and I feel like it really helped, just kind of helped me bounce, like have like a nice little running pad, especially on my, like within my artistry. Like I'm very, very grateful for my benevolent ancestry. I got to learn more about my benevolent ancestry and also have a lot of negative ancestry revealed to me too. A lot of things were purged because I literally had more time to do that. Like I didn't have to worry about my hair every single day. Like I could just literally like roll out of bed and, just freshen up a little bit and then I was cool. And I didn't have that perception of myself before I got locks. Like, I felt like I always had to get up, wash my face, do something with my hair, look presentable. Like the year before that, I feel like I was in, like the year before I locked my hair, like I was in a state of just like I was getting my lashes done. I was like, wearing wigs. I've only ever bought like one wig in my life. That was such a time because I love that wig. I feel like I always was a person that liked having a signature look in a way. Something like that was a continuous thing that I did. So I feel like that's something that I attempted during that time. But then evolving to lock my hair was really like I feel like me putting my foot down on my freedom for what it was at the time, or for what I perceived it to be at that time. And choosing myself in a very radical way that didn't keep me in boxes that I didn't want to be in. Like at that time, like I wanted to perform, I wanted to make films, I wanted to be in, like I was supposed to continue to fortify and make my name known. Honestly, like I knew that Season Love was something amazing, and that whole entire year, 2022, I was working towards a reality of honestly where I'm at right now, right? Like just pure creation magic within what I love to do. But, once I realized like the build up, and then also like seeing the repetitious thing of like these plants keep dying, it's obviously something that for me being just so I have so much curiosity, like my intellect is, I was like, but why is this the way that it is? Because it could be any way, it could be any other way, but it is like this, and there is a reason for that. And, at the end of 2023, I was really like, fucking mosquitoes, bro. These niggas need to get out of the way. I wasn't like mosquitoes, no, that's not what I said. At the end of 2023, I felt very awoken to versions of me that were sleep, truthfully. Like I was awoken in a lot of different ways in 2023, the ending of 2023 specifically. and coming to the overstanding, or the overstanding again, right? Because I feel like there's so many things that you learn, but then you relearn in different ways, so that like you can just have that higher perspective of it within that new cycle. Like the new cycle showed me how you genuinely, one, can't grow in places that hurt you, and also you can't expect a plant to grow in a fucked up environment. Like when I took a look around, like what I was actually like living in, like what I was subjected to, like, you know, I spent so much time like, just thinking that home is something outside of me, something that I have to go and like find, stabilize, and then like, bring all the people that I love there, and we have a big, because, you know, my childhood was very interesting as to where like I feel like my family and I were connected at a certain point in time, like during my younger years, but then there was like a really big shift, specifically when my mom fell sick, where like it was just my siblings, my mom, and it was just us. And like I would say like the being of rage, spirit of rage. So it's like I know of the community dynamics that my ego may crave. However, there was such a strong disconnectivity because I felt that I was making strides in what I was doing, connecting with the people that I cared about and taking care of individuals how I would desire to be taken care of, or just, taking care of community in the way I knew how. I didn't realize that I was expecting myself to grow in an environment that wasn't necessarily conducive to that. Is conducive the right word that I'm looking for? It's growing in an environment that wasn't necessarily the most beneficial for my growth. I was planted, like being in positions where like a lot more is being taken than what's being given. I'm giving a lot more than I'm receiving. Kind of like those plants. Like I can give them water every day and kind of put them by the sun, but it's also like in a projects building where like the sun doesn't necessarily like hit every single angle of the house all the time. So it's not even getting all the sun that it would get if it was actually in the right environment that it should be, which is out fucking side. And you can make artificial lights for it, sure. I'm sure that, the sciences that be today have justified that to some extent. But I know for me, I wouldn't like to be under artificial lights all the time. There's just so many different things that are continuously being purged and released. And, I don't necessarily have time to soothe the perspectives that aren't neutral enough to not judge the rapidness of the way that I pivot from things, the way that I release things, because this is a journey of remembrance and deprogramming. So, it made sense for me to awaken to something new and feel like, you know what, nothing that I have been doing feels correct, so I'm gonna stop doing everything. And during that time, that brought me back to another time in 2022 that, like, honestly slips my mind a little bit too much, more than I would prefer, because I do choose to like do reconnaissance on this aspect of myself. But it's a time period where like I had a baby kitten like die. Like it was given to me. I was gifted a baby kitten, and they were born like in the household that I was living in. And like a few weeks later they died. Like they got injured and then they died. And that made me think, or that just had like that aspect of myself at that version, like, yo, wow, everything that comes into my possession like dies. Like I was questioning myself as just a creator in general, and a better way to look at it is like a mother, because I'm here parenting my younger versions of myself, and then I'm also looking to build community in a form where like people are looking up to me, you know, people care about like my well-being and they heed my word, you know what I mean? I'm a leader in my own right within my own archetypal intelligence. And having that like baby die, it was just like, oh shit, hold on a second. Damn, what the fuck am I, like how neglectful am I? But it's the same thing with the plants as to where it's like, you know, are the environments that we have been subjected to genuinely beneficial enough for us to grow in the expansive ways that we know that we can grow? Because a lot of the times our perceptions of, you know, what we think is working really is just like what we have been subjected to this whole entire time. Like we didn't have a choice to think that this was the right answer. They just told us that it was the right answer. It's like, nope, yeah, it's this. And then there's that. So when all these perceivable solutions are already placed in front of you, what choice did you really have in the first place? Especially when it's things like housing, you know, being a plant that is sentient in its own right, but not enough to like, you know, stop you niggas from picking them out the ground and putting them in your house and selling them. I guess it's crazy to think of it like that because humans were programmed to think that we are the intelligence of intelligence. Like we are the most intelligent beings, so therefore we can take advantage of all the other sentient beings that are lesser life forms. Now, like I said, you don't have to perceive it that way, but when you say it like that, sounds like we're all colonizers, huh? Yeah. Making room for these new versions of myself takes a lot of willpower, especially in the sector of blocking out. It's not necessarily blocking, I guess we can say alchemizing, if you will. Alchemizing outside projections. You know what I'm saying? Like this whole little tidbit or back and forth of outer influence versus growing within my godship. Like people think so low of themselves and they think that lowly of other people. So they expect other people to not exceed their expectations, and when they do, the uncomfort that breeds from that, right? The jealousy and envy I hear, you know, is not something that we have been programmed to deal with in healthy ways. Honestly, if every like religion, spiritual person, whatever the fuck you quote unquote like quote unquote believe in, because we love to use the terms of belief, I don't think that oneness is a belief. I think that oneness is a knowing. And if your quote unquote beliefs perpetuate things that are not co-creating with oneness and peace, then for me personally, I prefer not to co-create with that. That's not something that aligns with what my tribe and I are growing within. And I know firsthand what it is to like identify with these like heavier, or what you say, lower frequency beings. Like we've been taught to relate to intricacies of shame and guilt and internalize them as like personality traits to a point where someone is holding you accountable, or just checking something in a way that is uncomfortable to what you have identified as. It's like you lose sight within a reactory you know, rage, I hear, that literally blocks you from seeing the totality of like what is attempting to be translated to you. Like I'm not about to sit here and like I can't coddle your shadows with you. Like bruh, if you're perpetuating shame, then you're gonna hear that. That's something that's gonna come up. You know, and I'm not saying that I, you know, don't like, oh, I'm the perfect shadow worker. I know I'm the best at doing shadow work, period. I mean, that's a great affirmation. I would affirm that. I feel like I'm one of the most noble. I feel like I do my best with every single breath that I take, and I wear my heart on my sleeve to a point where I don't mind being held accountable, especially for, you know, the versions of me that aren't necessarily, you know, emitting the most effective frequency. This is when it becomes a little less, way more less about good and bad and those perceptions, and more about what's effective to my growth and what's not effective. Like, okay, is the way that I am choosing to operate effective, or is it showing itself to be more like, okay, causing more distortion? That gets pretty obvious when, you focus inward. We're not like taking in outside projections, where we're focusing inward, and this leap of taking time away from city life and what I'm used to doing, of just like being around people all the time, and kind of creating a juxtaposition of that for myself. It's bliss. I don't really conform. Ever. I don't conform. Non-conforming artist over here. Conforming creator being. I won't be what people want me to be just because they think that it will bring me more prosperity or more what they perceive as abundance. Like, it's less about the materialistic shit and more about the balancing of, like, my light bodies, bruh. Like, the dismantling of these, literally, I hear, like, phantom traits, these malevolent traits that we have been taught to think are just instinct, animalistic instinct. We're not animals, we are gods. And animals are gods as well. They are just less someone said they have less thumbs than we do, so they're easier to take advantage of, as are the plants. It's just very, very, very uncomfortable. And I'm not about to sit here and try, like, I'd even, like, I'm over here now. We have a beautiful huge backyard. I'd even start planting shit yet. We don't really do lawn care, quote unquote, so we let the vegetation like grow and shit all back here. It looks very beautiful. But yeah, I'm not about to sit here and be something that I'm not, honestly.